Welcome back to another episode of Ballers, Beers, and Banter. I'm your host, Dave. Here with me, George Banks and Brian Mills. Anthony and Moose.
Wow, Dave, you finally got creative.
No,
what's up?
Hello.
There we go. Finally got creative. I was creative last. I've used Chronos, Father of Time, and all that sort of stuff. But do you know, Moose? Don't Google them. Don't Google them. Do you know? Don't Google it. I see you. What am I referring to with George Banks and Brian Mills?
I don't know. Tell us.
They're from movies. I'll give you a hint. They are movie characters.
I don't know.
No? All right. So George Banks is Steve Martin's character in Father of the Bride, and Brian Mills is Liam Neeson's character in Taken. Two very dedicated fathers.
Very dedicated fathers. I should have known it was something to do with Father's Day.
Yeah. So we'll shout out to all our dads out there. Happy Father's Day to our dads who are definitely listening, and to all the dads out there. And none of us are fathers yet, unless, are there any announcements?
No announcements.
No. Okay.
And also, I was reading this today. I sent out my Father's Day tweet, but I also should have mentioned Happy Father's Day to anyone who is in a father role as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Father's Day to everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Sunday, June 20th. Looking forward to this episode, guys. We'll do a little bit of headlines. There's not much going on, but the main meat of today, the meat and potatoes, as you will, is the Marquis de la Midround kickoff. The next 4 episodes are going to be dedicated to our Marquis de la Midround reviews. Moose, can you give us a little history into Marquis de la Midround?
I wish you told me we were doing this because I don't. You want me to just make up the history? So
no, just like where the name came from.
1 year ago, we started a podcast, and roughly. And our target audience was, or at least our mission was to target beginners, help people who had never played fantasy football get into fantasy football. And we've kind of strayed from that a little bit, and maybe we'll get back to it. But the idea is that in the early rounds, it's easy. You know who to pick. It's
your draft.
Of your draft. You know how to pick. It's pretty easy. A lot of big names. Okay, maybe a few rookies get sprinkled in there. But the key to winning is in the mid-rounds. And in the mid-rounds, you want to be the Marquis of the mid-rounds.
One more time. It's so good.
Marquis.
Oh, my God.
It cut out. It cut out for me because it went so high.
But that's how important it is. It's so important the microphone couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
In the middle rounds, realistically, that is where the future of your team is going to be decided, because really good decisions can be made and not so good decisions can be made. And that's where you want to be the marquee of your league and pick the best players you can in the mid rounds.
Yeah. We see year after year, there are gems hiding in those mid rounds, league winners hiding in those mid rounds, breakout players hiding in those mid rounds, the sleepers, whatever it is. You want to nail the middle rounds of your draft. And for us, we're describing that or defining that as around round 5 onwards up to round 10 or whatever. Late rounds are also important.
And
so you want to be.
Sometimes it's obvious names that they just get hidden. Just hide there.
Absolutely. So you want to be the marquee of your draft. You want to be the marquee of the mid rounds of your draft or drafts, but you also want to find the players that are the marquees hidden in there.
I realized that not everyone might know what a marquee is. So I'm going to.
Right. Yeah, which was part of the. I mean, that's what I
think that's what Dave meant.
Okay. I wanted you to talk about why it's the marquee and the wine bottle that you.
Oh, right. So hold on, I'm looking for a definition of what a marquee is. So, a marquis is a nobleman of hereditary rank in Europe or Japan. Okay, interesting. And then the other note is a member of the British peerage, ranking below a duke and above an earl. Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, you
There
wouldn't
you
want to be
go.
an Earl. You wouldn't want to find any Earls. You
Yeah.
know, a Duke, man, that's a lot to ask for.
Yeah.
Unless it's Duke Johnson.
All I'm thinking is that if you're the Marquis of the mid rounds, then you're definitely going to be the Duke of your draft.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, no, there was this wine that I had bought years ago. I just needed some grocery store wine to I was cooking a raspberry wine sauce, and I just needed some wine. And I just grabbed this bottle of, it was called a Marquis de Méricourt.
Ah, yes.
And
there it is.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest wine on earth, but it's still very tasty wine.
Wasn't it a box of wine too? Box?
There definitely is boxes of that wine.
Yeah.
But I picked some up not too long ago as a celebration of something we were doing for the podcast, and it's pretty tasty. Like I said, it's not in any way a fancy wine, but it's tasty.
It gets the job done, which is exactly the players that you'll be drafting in the middle rounds.
Yeah.
You just want them to get the job done.
It's like in the same way that Anthony calls McClub Ultralight a beer, Marquis de Méricourt is a wine.
Ouch. Shots fired. Anthony's a little rattled because he was having technical difficulties and computer issues and internet issues, and we were just razzing him as he was trying to get it all sorted out. We were just sending a nonstop barrage of hilarious gifs. But he's rattled. It's okay, Anthony. Get back on board. Deep breaths.
You can do it, Anthony.
Here we go. Do you guys have any headlines you want to rattle off before we get into it?
I mean, I don't have any major headlines. I mean, there was the headline that Travis Fulgham could take part in 3 wide sets, which is, I guess, exciting for anyone who was a big Travis Fulgham fan last season when he had like 3 games of.
He had 3 good games.
3 good games and then disappeared. So I guess he's having as Dave would say, a resurgence.
Is that what I would say?
Yeah, remember? Because we were talking, and then Divergence. Remember those movies? There was like a whole trilogy.
Yeah.
We're just like calling out things and then we're just confusing each other. It's hilarious. It's like Marquis did the mid round, throws it out to Moose. Moose is like, didn't know what was going on here.
I think I did really well, though.
And then
I did really well.
You did great.
Resurgence? He's like, is that something I would say?
You done great. So Travis Fulgham will be using 3 wide sets. What else? I mean, there's the Lev Bell drama with Andy Reid. Andy Reid's taking the high road, as expected. Anthony, any headlines on your end?
I mean, like there's just simple ones. Like Gruden wants to get Ruggs more involved in the offense. Like no duh.
No duh.
No duh. Andy Dalton staying back to give Justin Fields some pointers when Justin Fields stays later to try and get in some more reps.
Are we sure it wasn't the other way around? Justin Fields sticking around to give Andy Dalton pointers?
I mean, anything's possible. Anything's possible with the Bears. Yeah, but not too much going on in the news this week. So yeah, I say let's maybe dive into our marquees and can talk a little bit more about that.
Awesome. So what we're going to be doing is profiling players that we like in the middle rounds that we're recommending you should target in your drafts. So we're kind of doing these little mini profiles similar to how we did for our rookie reviews. And again, if you haven't listened to or watched our rookie reviews, go back and check those out for all your update information on the redraft relevant rookies. And we're going to get into some Marquis de la mid-round. We're going to get you guys prepared for your draft with some great mid-round picks. We're using, to judge what is mid-round. We looked at different ADPs. We have PPR ADP from Sleeper, one of our favorite platforms, and we've also taken some half-point PPR ADPs of an average of a conglomerate of a few platforms. So, but we're going roughly. We're going to tell you roughly what round these guys are being drafted in, and tell you all about them.
I'm also going to say what I find is the most annoying thing in fantasy football, but it's good advice, is know your league, because everybody's mid-round is different. But, know your league and
know how people draft. Yeah, exactly.
Know your mid-round. Know who's going to be in the mid-rounds.
But specifically, we're talking about redraft 1 QB leagues, because if you're in a super flex or 2 QB, it does change things quite a bit. But we're going with the usual 1 QB leagues. All right. Anthony, you want to kick us off here with your first Marquis de la mid-round?
Absolutely. So I went with
Hold on. Can you both take a stab at rolling your R's on the
I'm
Marquis?
terrible at rolling my R's.
Marquis.
No, not bad.
That was pretty good. Marquis. Just got stuck. Just get stuck. I can't do it. I'm a pretty good voice guy, but I can't roll. And, sorry.
Yeah. So,
go ahead, Anthony.
Sucks for you, but I mean, I did pretty good. But yeah,
good.
so I'm going with Deebo Samuel. Obviously, you all know he plays for the San Francisco 49ers. He's going into his third year. He is someone who is injury prone. He's only 25 years of age. He's 6 foot. And for those of you who don't know, again, I screwed up the word foot and mixed it with feet in our rookie episode. So it's
One time.
But having you two as buddies, like you guys never let things go. So I mean, it'll stay with me till I die, as long as I'm friends with you guys, which will be
when you'll be 6 feet underground.
Yeah. Yeah, so his ADP right now is he's going in the 8th round. He's 84th, 86th, I believe we said.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Somewhere around that 8th.
So 8th round, which is insane to me. Huge value grabbing him there because he's still young, like I said, 25 years going to his third year. Showed some success. It took like he's only played for 2 years. Last year he only played 7 games. Not very effective for your fantasy team. So if you took a gamble on him because he was injured preseason, it obviously didn't pay off. But let's look at his rookie season. So he started off pretty slow. He had a couple weeks in the double digits from week 1 to week 9. He had a 17-point week in half-point PPR and a 12-point week. But then the rest were single digits and not very good. But week 10 on, he had 15.2 fantasy points, 17.4, 12, 13.1, 13.4, 4.2, 13.9, and 22. So he had a strong finish that that he became the 29th overall receiver in fantasy football. That's in 2019. 2020 was 96th. Like I said, he was injured, but there's huge potential here on a young team. The rookie that they drafted last year, Brandon Ayuk, it's him, it's Ayuk or Ayuk, depending on Ayuk.
Okay,
and then
I don't know if that was on purpose or not.
No, it was because I remember that's what we were saying last season. But and you also have George Kittle coming back from injury, so huge potential with the offense. Plenty of places to spread the ball around. But with a guy that's injury prone, I think having a team with everybody healthy, that especially if Garoppolo stays healthy, that they can spread the ball around. Maybe they won't ask too much of Deebo and he can stay healthy all season. So I think it's better that everybody's on the field. It's better for Kittle. It's better for Ayuk. It's better for Deebo.
I think you messed it up.
No, I'm doing it on purpose.
All right.
And then, if Garoppolo has his issues, you guys believe, or I think, Dave, it's more you believe in Trey Lance more than Moose and I, or it could be vice versa. I'm not sure.
No, I believe in Trey Lance. I'm a big Trey Lance truther, believer.
I believe in Trey Lance.
I'm a Trey Lancer. I'm a Trey Lancer.
He just has a Jimmy Garoppolo hurdle to get over.
Right. I believe like Jimmy Garoppolo led them to the Super Bowl, and I believe that was the rookie year for Deebo Samuel. So
yes,
Garoppolo is very good for Deebo because that's where he had his success. So I'm not worried. Huge value there. We don't know who the number one guy is. Just looking at receivers, not counting tight ends, wide receivers, not looking at tight ends. So I think Deebo being a physical specimen, like I said, he's 6 foot, 215 pounds. That's pretty big.
Sorry, how big?
6 feet.
Thank you.
215 pounds.
Yeah, he's a yak monster. He's yards after the catch monster. He's very physical. He's also used in the
run game.
He's used as a gadget. He's not just a gadget player, but he's used as a gadget player as
right.
well.
So to give you some stats, in his 15 games that he played in 2019, he had 802 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, and 159 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns.
Three rushing tutties. That's huge for a receiver.
Yeah. So it's bad for the running backs on San Francisco, especially when he's healthy. But I mean, we're not complaining if you have him on your team. So when I've drafted him in my mock drafts, and I recommend to all our listeners to start mock drafting now. Now's the time to do it. Get some practice in.
Oh yeah.
I'm getting him around the 8th round, and he's usually my 3rd, 4th receiver.
Mm-hmm.
4th receiver. I mean, for a guy that has the potential to be a number 1 on a high-powered offense, I know it's a run-first offense mostly, but I mean, he stays healthy with other guys there. Not as much coverage will be just on him. Kittle's going to draw some coverage. Ayuk is going to draw some coverage. So I'm really happy having him as my 3rd or 4th receiver.
All right. So you mentioned Brandon Ayuk several times. So in Deebo's rookie season in 2019, where he was excellent. And actually, Anthony, you mentioned from week 10 onwards how good he was. You threw out some of his game logs. He was actually, from week 10 to the end of the year, he was the number 6 wide receiver on the year, averaging 13.9 points, half PPR. So he had a really good back half of the year. And we look at back halves of the year, specifically with rookies or even second-year players, because it takes them a while to get acclimated and to get used to the NFL and get used to the new offense. It's being a pro. So their back half's usually more indicative of what they're capable of. So he was wide receiver 6 on the year from week 10 onwards, as you pointed out. Now, that was without Brandon Ayuk. Now, in comes Brandon Ayuk in his rookie year, and he has a tremendous rookie season last year. So my question to you guys, to both of you guys, is are you worried about a run-first team, maybe a run-first team, supporting Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk?
Not at all.
No.
Zero.
There's teams who have to support more fantasy options than that, and people seem inclined to enjoy those players. I think if anything, it'll work out really well.
Yeah, and then
it's going to be even better for them. Why?
Well, because one, there's only 3 of them. There's 3 receivers on the team that are going to be fantasy relevant. That will probably get most of
maybe Jalen Hurd, maybe. That's what you were saying. Moose
maybe it's possible. Yeah. It's possible.
Okay.
And then I mean you have this run game where Raheem Mostert, obviously very talented, but also sidelined quite often. So then you bring in your rookie, maybe Wayne Gallman. Still a strong run game, but not the strongest. They're going to be passing. They're going to be passing.
Yeah.
So you think that you expect them to pass more than they threw 570 attempts last year between Mullins, Garoppolo, and CJ Berthard.
Yeah, but that's what I was just going to say. So they had a couple backup quarterbacks playing during the season, and these are not like their season was off. They went from a Super Bowl team to a team like, what the heck is going on? A bunch of injuries, no stability at quarterback. So I mean, with Garoppolo healthy, I think things get back on track. And for those people that want a little bit more of an explanation as to why we think that Deebo, or we shouldn't worry about Deebo with Ayuk there and George Kittle coming back, is the fact that him and Garoppolo have a rapport already. Garoppolo didn't play that much with Ayuk, and him and Kittle work perfectly together. So just throwing in Ayuk, I think, alleviates a little bit of the pressure you might get from defenders. So I think everybody could live happily this coming season.
Great. That's best case scenario. And then worst case scenario, they don't throw the ball that much. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt again. Trey Lance comes in and is not, phenomenal. But even in that case, or they're spreading the ball around a lot. Even in that case, do we feel Deebo in the 8th round, specifically because you're getting them in the 8th round as a wide receiver 3 or 4, it's still worth it at that point?
100%. I mean, I can't imagine a world where they don't pass the ball. I think that's an unrealistic thing where you say, oh, nope, they're super run heavy. They're not going to pass the ball.
Right. When I say not pass the ball, I mean enough to support everyone. But
I think that would be foolish on their part. Like, they've got very talented pass catchers.
Yeah.
It would be foolish to be like, hey, see that guy with the bum knees? We're gonna feed him all day.
I mean, they still threw the ball 570 times last year. That's pretty good.
And just to give an idea to our listeners, especially for you newbies that are starting to play fantasy football, in a mock draft that I did recently, I don't know, maybe you can look this up for me, Dave, but in the mock draft I did where I got Deebo as my, let me just confirm that. So I got him as my third receiver in my most recent mock draft. Brandon Ayuk is going, I just saw him. He's going in the 5th round in my mock draft. So, I mean, he finished 33rd. Yeah, he's going way earlier. He finished 33rd. So technically lower in his rookie season than Deebo. And I mean, yeah, people are worried about the injury proneness of Deebo, but I feel like Deebo's the guy. He's the gadget guy. He'll be on the field more for trick plays and all this stuff. So I feel like the value, and it's because of the value, it's worth the gamble on him at 8th, and maybe let somebody else take Ayuk.
It's great. I mean, last season, Deebo fell because of the injury, and one of the strategies I employed was I picked him up as the late round because I knew he'd be out for maybe half the season, but I knew in that back half of the season when he was healthy, huge asset.
Yeah.
So I think he's a great marquee of the mid round.
Yeah, I'm just checking on Brandon Ayuk. I have him going like round 6, half PPR, so still before Deebo. 6 or 7, which is kind of mind-boggling to me, actually, to be honest with you. And even in PPR as well, have him going pretty early. So it doesn't make much sense for Deebo to be going, like, to me, they should be drafted kind of side by side.
Right.
You know, and they should both be around round 8.
I think the only reason Deebo falls is because everybody always goes like, well, he might get injured.
Right.
Or so I'll take the other guy.
Or the recency bias, right? They're just looking at last year. And a lot of average, you might be playing in leagues where people, don't prepare that much. They're not listening to podcasts. They're not as prepped as the Ballers, Beers, and Banter boys will get you. So they're going into their draft and just going like, how good was this guy last year? Oh, Ayuk, okay.
I think we have to make a decision now, because now we have, we've got some listeners participate. Are we going to call them beer zerkers?
Our listeners?
Yeah.
Our listeners are definitely, if they're into it, if they're wild men and women who are who like their beer and they really, really, really passionate about fantasy football, they're beer zerkers, man.
Beer zerkers.
They're beer zerkers. So for all you beer zerkers out there, Deebo is a really good pick. So we're all in agreement. Great mid-round target, Deebo Samuel.
Yeah. Also, real quick, if you don't want to be called a beer zerker, send us a message. Let us know. Let us know what you want to be called.
That. All right. Well, great. Well, moving off of Deebo, Moose, talk to us about your first marquee.
My first season. Marquee is an interesting one because I think, based on ADP, he falls into the mid rounds, but I think in most cases he's not going to be a mid round guy. And this is TJ Hockenson, who is widely considered the 4th or 5th best tight end in the league.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think if you can get him in your mid rounds, it's exceptional is because, well, one, we've said it a million times. The drop off after the 5th wide receiver is exponential in terms of points. But this season, the Detroit Lions acquired Jared Goff, which in most cases I would say is not the greatest thing on earth. I mean, Jared has had his moments where he's shown and he's been very talented, but more often than not, he has not shown. Sean. There has not been a glowing light around him. However, when it comes to the tight end position, Jared Goff likes to feed the tight ends, and Jared Goff had Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett, who they're both, they're not bad tight ends. They're pretty good. But he fed them. And for example, last season, I would say LA didn't have, an official tight end, but Gerald Everett had 41 receptions for 417 yards, 1 touchdown. Tyler Higbee had 44 receptions, 521 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Tutties.
Tutties.
And so if you combine both of those into like one tight end,
one super tight
end,
Gerald Higbee,
or
Tyler Everett,
you get TJ Hawkinson's numbers. TJ Hawkinson had 67 receptions last year, 723 yards, 6 touchdowns. So if you were high on TJ Hockenson with Matthew Stafford, I think you should, have that same sort of vibe with Jared Goff, because he's going to feed TJ Hockenson. The other thing about TJ Hawkinson's situation is he's probably going to be the best receiver on that team.
Absolutely.
It's not even a probably. Like he is the best receiving option.
I'm saying
on
probably because I'm in Ross St. Brown is there. Maybe he'll break out crazy rookie talent. We don't know.
Maybe.
But as it stands, TJ Hockenson is, in terms of fantasy, going to be the one getting you most points from any kind of receptions in Detroit. So I think if TJ Hockenson, if you haven't taken my advice and taken a tight end early, and TJ Hawkinson's there in your mid rounds, I mean, you got to scoop him up.
So first of all, where do you guys have TJ Hawkinson ranked amongst your tight ends? And then where would you, how early would you draft him?
I probably have TJ Hawkinson at 4.
Yeah, me too.
It's hard because the only reason I wouldn't, like, he's 4 or 5, because the only reason he would be 5 is if Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews hit it off again. But I think Jared Goff and TJ Hawkinson are going to hit it off more this season. So that's why I have him up at 4.
They have to. Yeah. I think TJ Hawkinson's going to be a volume machine. So here's maybe where I'll point out a differential between half point PPR and PPR, or standard and PPR. In full PPR leagues, or if you play in a fancy tight end premium league where there's 2 points for every time a tight end gets a reception, or 1.5 points every time a tight end gets a reception, which is also a very cool format. TJ Hawkinson is going to light it up in those leagues. I think he's going to be very good. And I would easily rank him 4th overall. And I would definitely take him in the 5th round. I think, especially if you're going, so if you didn't get Kelsey, Kittle, or Waller, assuming you have like 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers kind of set up as your top 4, and then you can go grab Hawkinson, you're probably looking really good. Your top 5 guys are looking real strong.
So what I'll say on this is I probably have him 5th, because I do put Mark Andrews above, because Mark Andrews finished 4th in 2019.
He took you to the championship. When he took you to the championship.
And he took me to the championship.
A double championship.
Yeah, exactly. And won in the championship game.
That's what I meant.
That's generally how it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're the champion, you won the championship game.
He didn't say I was the champion. He said he
technically I said took him to the championship. So,
but then someone said double championship.
Then I said double. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
Now we're here.
And then he finished 0.7 points behind TJ Hawkinson last year. So they're pretty much neck and neck. And I agree. Like they both have sketchy quarterbacks as far as passing.
But that's what I'm saying. You're misunderstanding me. I'm saying this season, it's not sketchy. Jared Goff is going to feed him. That's 100%.
Well, I'm just saying they're sketchy passers in general that love passing to their tight end. So I do think it's good for Hawkinson. 4 or 5.
Lamar Jackson actually sucks at passing.
But the numbers for Mark Andrews is 4th and 5th. So I mean, not for Mark Andrews. So Mark Andrews, I do give him the little bump, but I mean, it's preference at this point. So
it very much is.
And then what I want our listeners to pay attention to is the reason why this is a great marquee is because I foresee in the offseason, in the next few weeks, couple months, that Hockenson might drop off, because you're going to hear all this Pitts talk. You're going to hear maybe Goddard with Jalen Hurts, and those two might be favorites for people to take. And I mean, people are going to forget about Hockenson, and that is just stupid. I think
fuel the Jared Goff fear.
Yeah.
If anyone in your league is like, I'm really worried about Jared Goff, you're like, yeah, you should be.
And I mean, let's just get crazy.
Manipulate the draft.
Yeah, you should be really afraid of Jared.
Let's just get crazy with like the tight ends going after that. You might have some crazy news. Like if Aaron Rodgers gets traded to Denver, Noah Fant might even surpass Hockenson. So you got guys like Goddard, Fant, and Pitts.
But that would almost be legitimate. If Aaron Rodgers is on Denver, I'm trying to get everybody on Denver.
Exactly. But so those 3 tight ends have the potential to be drafted ahead of Hockenson as the offseason continues, but you can't forget about Hockenson. He's gonna he's going to be great for your team.
Yeah, and I would say, so I love TJ as a pick. I would say if you're
Dave,
not,
you on a first name basis with him?
yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Exactly. See the difference? Okay, I love TJ Hockenson, or I love TJ. Anyways, if you're leaving your draft without Kelsey Kittle Waller, who are like the top tier, maybe Kelsey's a tier to himself, or the next tier of Hockenson, Andrews, and I would put Kyle Pitts in there. If you're not leaving your draft with one of those 6, then you're punting the tight end position essentially. Like you might be streaming tight ends. There's just no guarantees after that. So I think one of those 6 to me, you want to be trying to target. And if you can't, then good luck. You better have really good running backs and wide receivers and quarterbacks, because tight end will be trouble. All right. Anything else on TJ Hockenson? I almost said TJ.
No, I think that's all I have to say about TJ.
All right, good. So it's my turn. My first Marquis de la mid-round of the 2020
you want me to do it for you?
Please.
Marquis.
Oh, Anthony, that was even better than last time. I'm not even going to try. My first Marquis is Mike Davis, running back for the Atlanta Falcons. He's 5'9", 220 pounds, if you're interested, and he's been in the league for quite some time. Very pedestrian stats over his career.
But he's not a pedestrian on the field.
No, not at all. You might even exactly. You might even call him a journeyman. But what's exciting me about Mike Davis? Well, first off, he's on the Atlanta Falcons this season. The Falcons have supported in the past some decent running backs to be very good fantasy running backs. Okay, dating back to like the Devonta Freeman, the Tevin Coleman days. Devonta Freeman had 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He was really effective in the passing game, and Tevin Coleman even had a season where he was the lead back and he was over 800 yards rushing.
They fed both of them.
They did feed both of them. Moose, is Tevin Coleman very good? Do you think Tevin Coleman's a good running back
now?
Even back then when he was with Atlanta.
Back then, it worked. They were both fantasy options in that year, which I don't know what it was, but it worked.
Would you say they were outperforming their talent level?
I mean, not then.
Okay.
I think
I was hoping for yeah.
Well, I would say nobody expected
younger.
Devonta Freeman to do what he did, but they were younger. So when they did succeed, you're like, oh, that's great. But
okay. All right. So we have that. Now, that was quite some years ago. Last season, let's take it back to last season. Todd Gurley was there. And we saw Todd Gurley start the year with 9 rushing touchdowns in 9 games. And that was good enough with that touchdown upside. It was good enough for running back 6 at that point for over the first 9 games of the season, first 9 weeks of the season. Then the wheels proceeded to fall off for Gurley, mainly due to poor play, not usage. He was still being used. Okay. Which is important, I think. Okay. Mike Davis. He finished the season as the 13th running back overall, playing for the Carolina Panthers last year, 13th overall in half PPR. He ran for a modest 3.98 yards per carry. Under 4 yards per carry is not great. We want to see it at least over 4. He was getting 11.7 fantasy points per game. It's not bad. But what stood out to me with Davis last season was he showed he was able to handle the lead back role. He was able to handle that workload. He did it pretty well throughout the season in replacement of Christian McCaffrey. And he had a nose for the end zone. He scored 6 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns in his time, and it was really only used in 12 games because there was 4 games where CMC was the guy. So in the 12 games that Mike Davis was featured, 8 touchdowns. Pretty good. And he showed he can handle that workload, and he can be a reliable fantasy option. Okay, now, that's the old Atlanta, and that's a little bit of Mike Davis history. Okay, now we have a new head coach in Atlanta, as we've mentioned, Arthur Smith, who's coming from the Tennessee Titans, which is a Tennessee system that saw Derrick Henry win back-to-back rushing titles. The Titans ran the ball 62% of the time last season for a total of 521 attempts, 378 of which went to Derrick Henry. Henry ran the ball 378 times last year, guys. That is just nuts.
Is Mike Davis Derrick Henry?
No, not at all. Mike Davis is not even near Derrick Henry's status in terms of talent level. And we can't expect this to be the exact same team as last year. But I do think that they're going to use the run. Okay. He's not going to get the same workload, nor does he have the talent to be the NFL rushing leader. But we do have a known commodity in Mike Davis on a team that figures to run use the run game a majority of the time in their offense.
But is that realistic?
Why is that not realistic?
Well, I mean, they just acquired Kyle Pitts, and I mean, Calvin Ridley is, poised to also be phenomenal with Julio Jones not there.
Okay, so they lost Julio Jones though, which is a lot of targets in a lot of the pass game. And just looking at last year, they did pass the ball 628 times. Atlanta loves to pass the ball, and they ran it 409 times. But I would expect those to balance out a little bit. But that being said, even if they rush the ball 400 times, you got to figure that Mike Davis is going to get most of those carries, right? They have a rookie Javian Hawkins, who might compete. There's always young blood. Young running backs always compete for.
He's a small guy, though.
Sure, but so maybe he'll be using the passing game, whatever. But I think a realistic stat line for Mike Davis at the end of the season, keeping in mind it's a 17-game season this year, not 16, would be about 250 rush attempts for around 1,000 yards, 8 rushing TDs, and maybe something like 35 receptions, 200 to 300 yards, a couple extra tutties in the passing game, which is about 208 fantasy points, which would put him RB9 last year. Of course, this year with 17 games, it'll be a bit more. So to me, he's in that RB2 range, but his upside is as much as an RB1. If he stays healthy and he's the only guy, he could be an RB1. So you're getting in Mike Davis, someone that's going around round 5 or round 6 in drafts right now. You're getting someone that I think is a pretty safe RB2, at worst RB3, but his upside could be as much as an RB1. So I think in those mid rounds, you got to look for value. And to me, Mike Davis jumps off the page as a value pick.
I like it. He is a solid marquee.
A solid marquee. All right. Thanks, Moose.
Especially since like the round. So what round? What's his ADP? You said what round was he going?
He's roughly going round 5. So in PPR, we have him a little bit later, but in half point PPR, he's roughly a round 5 pick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're happy with that. Even a little later, he went in my most recent mock draft. He went in the 7th round, which is even better to grab him there because running backs are very important, and it's hard to find in the late rounds a running back that is the number one guy on a team. So we've talked about guys like they're more rookies, but Javonte Williams and like Michael Carter, like we know those guys are going to be the number one guys on their team. Mike Davis is a seasoned veteran. He's 28 years old. He's been a journeyman he's a journeyman like you said.
He's a journeyman. He's been around.
Only had 2 fantasy seasons out of 6 that have been over 100 total fantasy points.
Wasn't he also supposed to be the solution in Chicago? Didn't he play for Chicago for a while?
He never, I think he was drafted by Chicago, right, Anthony? You're the Chicago guy, but he never played.
He never played. He 2 seasons in San Francisco, 2 with Seattle, and then 2 with Carolina. I think even Chicago brought him back in the offseason, and then when it came to like cutting players, he got cut. So he never really played for the Bears. But when he's been on the field, as a backup, he's certainly done well, or replacement like with the previous year we said. So I mean,
Bears move.
Classic Bears move. Yeah. And he wanted to, I think he said when he was cut by the Bears that he wanted to prove to them to show that he's still, that he's capable of being a number one. So this, by all means, is a year to do that. Atlanta doesn't really have a running back. It's just him. Like you mentioned the rookie, but I'm not worried about the rookie. It's just the only concern, if I'm going to be skeptical, is that they're going to be behind a lot. So they're going to air out the ball. But I mean, we saw Todd Gurley be successful. The touchdowns, I think Mike Davis is going to have a big year for touchdowns. So he's definitely worth the pick. He's a number one guy. He's a number one running back on a team. So the value there is fantastic.
He's a number one running back. And I'm just reviewing. Yeah, in PPR, he's going round 7. Half PPR, he's going around round 6 right now.
Okay.
And I think I said round 5. So he's around round 6. Yeah, you can't listen. If you can get
Dave,
we're listening.
We're listening.
God, you get me every time with that. If you can get a starting running back in the mid rounds, that is huge because Obviously, the stud running backs are studs, and they're studs for a reason. But then after that, after the second round of running backs, you're looking for opportunity. Opportunity is king. David Montgomery last year, not a stud running back, finished the year in half-point PPR as the 4th overall running back. Why? Because of opportunity. Tariq Cohen got hurt. He was the only guy. They played some poor rush defenses. He tore it up in the back half of the season. Mike Davis is going to have opportunity. He's going to have volume, and he's going to have the opportunity the whole way to be the lead guy. So you just can't turn your nose up at stuff like that. So he's one of my big time targets in those mid rounds. And that's it. That's our first marquee breakdown. Deebo Samuel, TJ Hockenson, Mike Davis. And I like that they were all kind of early mid round guys. And as we progress, we might start going a little more middle mid rounds, late mid rounds, to help you guys out with your draft. Yeah, so you guys are prepped and ready to go. Anything to add on those 3 players we talked about, guys?
I would just say, in terms of Mike Davis, just keep your ear to the ground, because the comment in Atlanta was that anybody could be the starting running back.
Right.
So although I agree that Mike Davis is the starting running back, keep your ear to the ground in case.
Yeah, you never know what can happen.
In case that wildly changes.
Yep. I mean, nobody knew who James Robinson was before last year, right? Everyone's thinking Leonard Fournette's going to be the guy in Jacksonville he wants out, and then all of a sudden in the camp, James Robinson impresses, and he was fantastic.
But
so
look at this stuff. Just to give you an idea of how people are drafting, in my mock draft, again, my most recent
Anthony,
one.
you're really high on this one mock draft. You did.
No, but I mean, it's the most recent one. I did it yesterday,
and
so
only
it's just no, not the only one. So you got guys like Ronald Jones, Chase Edmonds, Damian Harris, Raheem Mostert, Leonard Fournette going before him. Like these, I don't want anything to do with the running backs on Tampa Bay. Chase Edmonds, we know, is for now taking a back seat.
Sorry, say it again.
He's behind Connor for now.
No, he's not.
No, I don't think so.
Well, he's not being drafted. He's not being drafted like that in mock drafts right now. That's for sure.
No, he's not.
So James Conner has more value right now, but I don't think he's taking a backseat to James Conner. I think Chase Edmonds is the only one of those that you listed that I would potentially take before Mike Davis.
Damian Harris, we said don't draft.
Chase Edmonds was a backup running back last year who was
probably still
very serviceable. Well, he was great. Okay, so he was backing up Kenyon Drake, who was the workhorse back, and he still was very serviceable as a fantasy option. So now insert James Conner, the oft injured James Conner.
Healthy,
so
who's better, Kenyon Drake or James Conner? Healthy. James Conner.
It's pretty close. I think it's pretty close.
Well, pick one.
Healthy James Conner 3 years ago, or healthy James Conner this upcoming year?
This upcoming year, because that's all that matters.
Then Kenyon Drake,
who's taking a backseat to Josh Jacobs.
Well, we don't know. Kenyon Drake's arrival has everyone all up in arms about Josh Jacobs, right?
I know.
Yeah, they're supposed to be a timeshare.
And even David Johnson was going before, which is also a tire fire. So, yeah. I mean, Mike Davis, go with Mike Davis. Even if the rookie starts getting some reps in, Mike Davis will be more of a will have more of a contribution to your team than these other guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Chase Edmonds finishes the 25th running back in half PPR last year as a backup. Just saying.
So you can go ahead and draft him.
But you also, like when Moose says keep your ear to the ground.
I would absolutely draft Chase Edmonds where he's being drafted, where he's being taken.
The coaches were saying Chase Edmonds is the number one back. Literally a couple days later, they pull in James Conner. Like,
yeah, I mean everyone pulls in veteran running backs. They get pulled in everywhere. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Even if it's a 50-50 timeshare, I like Chase Edmonds a lot. And he's the pass catching back.
Okay,
right?
So Chase Edmonds and Mike Davis on the same wavelength. I don't agree. Mike Davis is the number one right now. Chase Edmonds will eventually become the number one. So go with Mike Davis over Chase Edmonds first.
Okay, that's a fair point. All right, guys. Time for the next segment.
Yeah.
Oh, sticking with running backs for They Said It on Reddit.
See, that was so much better than when you tried to rush it last episode. So much more.
There's not a lot of...
so much more gusto.
Good.
So this one's coming from user Kane Highwind 5. Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. Botched the name. High Wind 5.
Oh God, how embarrassing.
Kane Highwind 5. This is a discussion. Can James Robinson and Travis Etienne coexist? I'm not going to read the whole thing. It is super long, but I'll give you the gist of it.
It's well written.
Right. I know a lot has been made about James Robinson having 80 to 90% of the team's rushing attempts, and that this number will rightfully plummet with Etienne. But I just looked on NFL stats, and the Jags came in dead last in overall rushing attempts with 337, with Baltimore, Tennessee, and New England being the highest at over 500 attempts. This means that Jacksonville can add another 125 rushing attempts to get a league average of 200 rushing attempts if they want to break into the top 3. So I mean,
was that stressful for you, Anthony?
Yeah, was that tough?
Well, I mean, like, I don't know
tough.
no, it's just, I don't know. I think he's looking too much into the stats here with Jacksonville. They have a new coaching staff. I mean, they brought in Etienne. The rushing attempts for the previous season, I think you can just throw it in the trash because you got a new head coach there. And they're going to do a bunch of different things. I think the run game is super important for them. And having these gadget players like Etienne, running back first, obviously, but you have Laviska Shenault, and then you still have James Robinson, a super productive running back. So, I mean, I believe they can still coexist because we see plenty of teams. This is the new age NFL. We see a lot of teams with multiple running backs and 2 running backs that can both be successful for your fantasy teams. Chubb, Kareem Hunt. To me, that seems like a direct comparison that could work.
Your favorite, Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde last year, or this year, Chris Carson, Rashad Penny.
Yeah,
it's not gonna be Rashad Penny.
No, I mean, probably not. But that's
Jacobs, Kenyon Drake.
That was a discussion a while back.
Jacobs, Kenyon Drake for some of you people, or Henderson and Cam Akers.
Here's how I see it. Well, first things first, I'd like to say,
Moose. How do you see it?
Listen, Dave. This is how I see it. Kane High Wind 5. First, thank you for creating content.
Yes.
By putting a big article, not just a silly question. We like that. And here's how I see it. Is that now? Listen. Here's how I see it.
Moose.
Yeah,
I'm listening.
Let me tell you how to see it, Anthony.
Okay.
So James Robinson, undrafted free agent, he signed a 3-year contract, so he only has 2 more years. We know that Travis Etienne is a very talented rookie. I think that if Jacksonville is actually interested in developing their team, they shouldn't rush Travis Etienne into a lead role. James Robinson, as we saw, can handle it. So run James Robinson. Run him until he's not running anymore and transition Etienne in. So we know that they want him out as a wide receiver. Fine. Keep him as the pass catching back. Get him a feel for the league. Get him a feel for the NFL. We'll throw you some short passes, you run with it. But just keep feeding James Robinson the ball until James Robinson, is not running the ball well. And then, hey, Travis Etienne, step in, bud. It's your turn. So I can't imagine why they would just, table James Robinson for a rookie. Like, right. you have an asset that's very talented. Use it.
And even if the roles switch, if Etienne becomes number 1, it's not like they're not going to use James Robinson anymore. He maybe will get less rush attempts, but he's very successful as far as touchdowns go. So, I mean, they could live.
Yep. I like the way you see it, Moose, and the way you describe it. I believe when Travis Etienne was drafted, Urban Meyer, head coach Jacksonville Jaguars, came out and said he'll be the pass catching back. And then we had all sorts of hype reports about him being used as a wide receiver and gadget plays and whatever. So it seems like he's leaning towards that role, which would leave James Robinson as the first and second down back, we would assume, to start the season at least. Maybe that progresses more towards Etienne as the season goes on. But there'll be a role for James Robinson. I think before Etienne was drafted, James Robinson was probably going to be overdrafted in leagues because of his great year last year. I think he was 5th overall in half PPR. So he would have went too high. I think that was a bit of a reach for him. But now with Travis Etienne there, I think the reverse effect is happening. People are drafting Travis Etienne before James Robinson in mock drafts. James Robinson's falling quite low. He's a marquee.
Yeah, I was going to say he might be a marquee in the next
And-
episode.
I didn't want to ruin it. I was going to say it, but I was like,
I think that, you know, if you can get him as an RB3 or RB4 on your team, he could be an RB2, right? He could be, and again, when we say RB2, we mean someone that finishes an RB1 would be in that 1 to 12 range of rankings for a 12-team league, and then RB2 is like 13 to 24, and I think James Robinson could sit pretty nicely in that RB2 range with Travis Etienne. So,
and a quarterback that can actually open up the field.
And Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yeah, with some dangerous wide receivers. So I think they can coexist, absolutely.
100%.
Especially with how they plan to use Travis
Hundo
Etienne.
P.
Hundo P. All right, great question.
And even if you're so for sure, I would say week 1 it's going to be James Robinson for sure.
Yeah.
I would say week 1. So even if you draft James Robinson, and maybe this is a strategy, he has a great week 1, trade him. Try trading him. See what people will throw you, because now your question's answered. People are going to go, oh, week 1, oh, they are going to use James Robinson. Maybe they're not going to use Travis Etienne as much. So maybe hit up the Travis Etienne owner and be like, hey, looks like they're going with Travis Etienne. How about
I mean James Robinson.
James
Robinson? How about you give me a player that maybe on your team you're a little bit weak at, and then see what happens.
Or all those people that drafted Ronald Jones, Fournette, and Damian Harris, where you'll get like a terrible stat line, like you'd be like, hey guys, you don't have a starting running back.
I don't
Here's
know.
one.
I don't want to draft one of the Tampa Bay. I mean, I'll take a Tampa Bay running back if I have to, if it falls to me at that point. But one of them, let's say if one of them gets injured or one of them kind of falls off and they go with only one, that running back is going to be very, very good.
You know what those running backs are for?
What?
They're for when in week 3 people drop them to the waiver wire. People are going to draft
Fournette
them.
or Ronald
yeah,
Jones?
Leonard Fournette. And then week 3, one of them will, obviously be used or not be used, and someone in your league is going to drop them a waiver wire. That's when you scoop them. That's when you scoop them up.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. And Moose is the waiver wire king. So the whisper. What do we call you? The waiver wire whisperer.
What do they call me, Dave?
Devont. I don't know. The wizard, waiver wire wizard. That's what it is. All right, guys. This whole time, I'm on beer number 2 because we had to wait for Anthony's technical difficulties, and we did start this whole podcast at 11 a.m. Pacific time, my time. So I'm having a coffee lager because I'm still waking up. I'm in breakfast mode over here, and it's a Lighthouse Night Watch. So delicious, and I love the little Poseidon on the logo. Lighthouse Brewery. When you guys visit next, it's a hop skip away from my house. It'll be the first stop on our paddleboard brewery tour of Victoria, which I'm promising you guys. I also ordered the paddleboard. It's coming.
Nice. Inflatable or solid?
Inflatable. Stand-up paddleboard. It's easy.
So, no, I'll tell you this. So,
what?
My mom had a non-inflatable paddleboard, which was it was great. And then, it was a pain in the ass because it's not easy to transport. So we got an inflatable one. Not as easy as you think.
I've used them. I've used it.
But on calm water?
Yeah.
Yeah, because on we were on like the water was a little bit choppy, and it was not easy to balance.
No, I'm sure. Yeah, it is a little tougher to balance, but you just got to inflate it well, and you're good to go. Easy to transport. What are you guys drinking?
I had a Long Island iced tea.
Oh yeah,
it's gone.
All the liquor.
It's gone.
It was a nice summer day. I was like, you know what? This is what I want. It's gonna be delicious.
It's actually it's technically the last day of spring, but it is beautiful out.
Oh goodness.
Well, anyways,
tomorrow is the official first day of summer. Just saying.
Technically, Dave, I don't care. And it was delicious. I didn't know this. There's no iced tea in a Long Island iced tea.
Oh, you didn't know that originally?
I didn't know that. I went out and bought a case of iced tea because I was like, I guess I'm gonna have to mix some iced tea in this. And then
wait, there's not?
Nope.
No.
It's Coke.
It's meant to taste like an iced tea with the mixtures.
Yes, it's rum, tequila, vodka, gin, and triple sec.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a splash of Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why I said all the liquors.
It's an ounce of each, and then maybe like an ounce, 2 ounce of Coke, and you put it with a whole bunch of ice. You shake it up. And then you drink it. And
how do you shake it? How do you shake it, Moose? For our
like
YouTube
this.
listeners, how do you shake it?
Like
yeah, well done.
And it's delicious.
We need to capture that shot. That's beautiful.
Wow, I think I knew that about Long Island iced teas, but
well, when you come to visit, I'll have perfected it. Because the first time I made it,
I look forward to the headache the next day.
Yeah, no, it's delicious. So
I'm not saying it's not delicious.
I'm in no way like I don't know how to make cocktails. Like, it's not a big thing for me. So the first time I made it, I didn't put any ice in the shaker. I just put the alcohols and I did, and I poured it, and I was like, "This is disgusting. I'm like, this tastes nothing like iced tea." But that's the trick: is you got to put a lot of ice,
right, for the iced part of the tea.
No, but just all cocktails in general, you got to put a lot of water, and then
always in the mix.
It aerates it and stuff, and I don't know.
Yeah, does a whole thing.
I'm having a Modelo.
Oh, nice.
Oh, is that the official drink of technical difficulties?
Not a sponsor.
Oh, it's so sad. It's okay. It's okay, Anthony. We're just razzing you. How's your Modelo?
It was fantastic. I wanted
better
to
than
get
his internet.
Oh man, poor Anthony.
I wanted to get up and get a second one, but I mean that would be just rude during the podcast.
Rude for our YouTube listeners, especially YouTube watchers. Speaking of which, if you're not already subscribed, please do that. And what do we say, guys? Smash the like,
smash the bell for notifications.
Smash the bell.
When,
or you can say, I learned recently you can ring the bell.
You can ring the bell.
Go ring that bell.
I think you smash the subscribe button and you ring the notifications bell, so that when we put up a new video, you're notified and you know right away.
Right. And then leave us thumbs up.
And hit us up at
down.
3B Fantasy Pod.
Also, go to iTunes. Maybe leave us a little review.
Yeah.
Throw a couple stars at us. No big deal.
We'd love it. We'd love it. And if you do reach out to us on any of our platforms, we will get back to you.
Yeah.
We will talk to you. We'll chat it up. Anything you want. Yeah. But great episode, guys. I'm looking forward to our other 3 episodes of the Marquis de la Midround. You guys, listeners, are going to want to pay attention because it's very important.
Also, Dave, I'll just say Sinker DFS reached out. He 100% supports the Kirkland brand polos.
I saw that. Yeah. Nothing wrong with Kirkland brand polos. I'm digging it.
They're great.
I'm digging it. A little Costco action. Any words of wisdom?
Sponsor.
Not a sponsor. Any words of wisdom before we part?
Put your best gut forward. You don't win it on draft day, and if it's 295 Kelvin, put on some sunscreen.
We might actually be approaching 295 Kelvin because it's going to be summer soon. So
also, like Moose
definitely
said,
wear your sunscreen.
Put ice in your when you mix your drinks. Very important.
Yeah.
And be on the lookout for Marquis in your mid rounds.
Be the Marquis.
Or be the Marquis of your mid round.
Go mock draft and be the Marquis.
All right. As always, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Ciao.